How's it going, super friends? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Brad the DC Universe Geek, and I do mostly DC Comics based content on this channel with the very occasional not DC related video, but more than 99% of the stuff on this channel is all DC Comics based. Now, my action figure reviews, how I would usually do them, is not like what you're going to see today. Things got a little bit screwy during the editing process. I just want to point that out. Usually what I would do is I would either record my videos the classic way, where I just sit down with the product in front of me and the camera and just open the product, talk about it, my initial impressions, and give an honest review of whatever it is that I'm opening. Or I would do things the way that I've kind of transitioned into. I kind of melded into it, where now, typically what I'll do if it's a video that I really want to be really good, I want to put forth my very best effort with a video, I will sit down, open the figure, get all my footage, take all my pictures, all my poses, really get to know that figure for the first day and take my time, not rush anything, and then take all the pictures and all that video footage back to my computer, load it in the computer, and then look at the pictures, look at the imagery, go over it all, and get an idea of exactly what I want to say about said figure. And from there, I would record it, and then the pacing of the video and all my imagery, everything would be set to what I'm saying. So the audio would come first, and then the imagery added afterwards. Well, I did things differently this time. Yes, I took all my video footage and all my pictures and got to know the figures and did that whole thing, but I realized, okay, I want to do 5 figures in one video, and I don't want the video to be long because these aren't new figures, and they're not old classic DC Direct figures that haven't had a good HD video made about them. These are figures that are only a short period of time old, but they're still old. They're still old news. So I thought, let's just do all 5, one video, make it quick so it won't drag on. And I began to edit the video together, and I had an idea of what I wanted to do, and then I changed it. And then I got another idea and I kind of changed it again. And before you knew it, I had this video that was put together that I think the pacing works fairly well if you're trying to see all the figures and you want to see them close up and that whole thing. However, to talk over it, to narrate over top is almost impossible without actually altering the footage and moving it and changing it and that kind of thing. Because some segments are too long and some are too short to actually say what I want to say. So to get past all that, to deal with all that, I've decided that for today's figure review, show and tell, it's more of a show and tell, I've just put music over top of all of the imagery, all of the footage. This video, unfortunately, will not be what I wanted it to be, but I have tried to salvage it and make it kind of interesting. And then at the end of the video, I'm going to have another thing where I kind of talk to you about some of the things that were of note with the figures, and then I'll end the video from there. So you'll see my face again at the end. And I'm going to try and keep the whole thing as brief as I can, but it is dealing with 5 figures, and I do have some thoughts on them. So let's just go on with the video, and then I will see you at the end, if you're still with me. All right, so I'll see you after. Okay, so here we are. We've made it to the end of the video. Hopefully you've stuck with me this far. And I just want to cover some of the things, some of my thoughts on these figures. For one, I didn't even do articulation because it wasn't uniform, and there's 5 figures, and this isn't really a review. It's more of like a show and tell, look what I got, here are the figures kind of deal. However, I did take pictures to utilize some of the articulation so you could see some of what they could do. But there's no real articulation segment because it's not uniform. Some have a lot of articulation like Nightwing, and some have, you know, very little, and it's kind of iffy like Catwoman and Gordon, like in the, say, the elbow department, not very good. So I just kind of left that part out completely. As far as the sculpting goes and the painting of the sculpts, I thought they did a pretty good job of accurately painting these figures. With there's some spots where you're like, yeah, that's kind of sloppy, but for the most part, I think they did a pretty good job all around. I mean, we do have to remember that these are manufactured in China, where all of the workers do have a quota. They have a certain amount that they have to produce in a day, and so you're only going to get such amount of quality, and it's not going to be the same amount of quality you would expect from an import figure. And even then, sometimes the paint can be sloppy. So I mean, the fact that they look as good as they do, I'm satisfied with what I'm getting. And yeah, the sculpting detail, I feel, does accurately represent the characters as presented in the Arkham Knight game. So no real complaints there until I get to the faces. I think all the faces, I'll get to Jim Gordon after, but for the rest of them, I think all of their faces are accurate sculpts of what we see. Red Hood's helmet looks like Red Hood's helmet. Nightwing's face is sculpted to look like Nightwing's face, so on and so forth. I think they did a good job, except for when you come to the paint for some of them. Robin's face is the face of complete complacency and defeat. And Nightwing's face is painted really sloppy. I mean, you wouldn't notice it from farther off, but when you get that camera and you get the macro shots, Nightwing's face is atrocious as far as the paint goes. So I think that whoever is painting those faces should, you know, let's lower the quota or hire the amount of people that need to be there to actually take the time to not paint these things lightning fast, because the masks are painted really messy. It really takes away from the overall look of these figures. The hoods were rubber, and I think that that kind of takes away from the overall posability of these figures, because if you want to turn the figure in a certain way, you got to turn their head, and you either got to turn it so their face is in the hood, or you got to pull the hood off. And when you pull the hood off, you do kind of wreck the paint a little bit, and it's kind of a catch-22. No hood, you're going to have an ugly hood mark where it was. Keep the hood on and just kind of bend it around, the paint's going to wrinkle. So to me, that's a drawback for these figures for sure. But overall, I do really like these figures as a whole. I think they look like who and what they're supposed to, except for Jim. Jim Gordon's paint apps and sculpting looks great. I am satisfied with that. The only problem is this figure is a lot more spindly. The Jim Gordon figure is a lot more skinny than he appears in the game. In the game, he's a bit more girthy and rough and tumble looking. You know, he wears Old Spice aftershave, and you could see in his face, he's got that rugged face, and you could tell he smoked a pack of cigarettes a day back in the day. And I just don't get that from this one. I see a Jim Gordon that is very skinny and looks like he's from a completely different, you know, part of the multiverse. I just don't see him being accurately represented figure form from the game in this figure. I like the figure, I just don't see the game version of Jim Gordon when I look at it. But overall, I do think these are excellent offerings from DC Collectibles to give us game-accurate action figures to that universe. And I do highly recommend that you pick them up if you can find them for a reasonable price that's not going to break the bank and you're not buying from a complete and total scalper. Red Hood aside, because he's a GameStop exclusive, if you really want him, you're just going to end up having to pay whatever a crocodile scalper decides you're going to pay, because he's a lot more rare. I was very lucky and found mine for just under 60 bucks, but that's a very rare thing. You're going to find him for anywhere from 80 to 100 bucks American if you go to Evil Bay or Amazon. He's just rare, and you're going to have to pay what you're going to have to pay for him. But you know what? These are just my opinions. I'm one guy, and I'm curious to know what yours are. Do you have these figures? Do you like them? Do you not have them? Do you hate them? Have you sworn off of DC Collectibles and sold all your DC figures, or possibly set them on fire in the backyard? If you have, I hope that you filmed it and put it on YouTube, because I'd like to see that. Not that I want to see DC stuff get destroyed, but I also like to watch really weird stuff on YouTube sometimes. I fall down that YouTube rabbit hole a lot more often than I like to admit. Anyway, I think I've just digressed. I have. But yeah, leave it down in the comment section below what you think of these figures. If you like the video itself, you feel like it was a reasonable waste of time, then leave a thumbs up on it so I know I'm doing something right. And if you'd like to leave me a letter, postcard, or a picture, the P.O. box is down below. I would like to make a segment where I read people's letters and then post their letters and pictures back there on the DC Squad fellow fan wall, because we're all fellow fans, and I think that it's really cool when I get letters. Who doesn't like getting letters in mail? Unless, of course, they're all bills. Ain't no one like getting bills. Especially medical bills, if you live in the States. That crap's expensive.